My parents took me on what they called a dream vacation, but they never came back. They left me alone in another country with just a note that said, "You're 17, old enough to survive." My name is Natalie. I was 17 when my parents took me to Greece. They said it was a fresh start. I'd been struggling, failing math, getting into fights at school, skipping class. My mom told people I was just being moody. My dad didn't say much. He never really did. Then one day, they surprised me with plane tickets and said it would be just the three of us, no siblings, no work. I wanted to believe they were really trying to fix things. At first, the trip felt a little weird, but also hopeful. We ate ice cream by the sea, visited old ruins I didn't really care about, and took smiling photos for Facebook. My mom even held my hand while we waited for the ferry to Santorini. I thought maybe this was the new beginning they promised. We were supposed to fly back home in the morning. That day, we had breakfast together at the hotel. My mom wore her special coral lipstick. My dad drank his usual black coffee and stared at the newspaper like always. Just before it was time to check out, my mom said, "We're just going down the street to buy souvenirs. Be back in 15 minutes. I barely looked up, just nodded. I was busy texting my best friend about how the trip was going. But they didn't come back. An hour passed, then 2, then 4. I asked the hotel staff if they'd seen them. The front desk clerk said, "The couple from room 302? They already checked out this morning." I ran to the room, but my key didn't work anymore. When someone let me in, it was empty. My suitcase was gone, so was my passport and even my backpack, like I had never been there. I called their phones, straight to voicemail. My texts wouldn't send. I started freaking out, walking around crying and calling again and again. A stranger asked if I was okay. I wasn't. The next morning, I went to the U.S. Embassy. I hadn't slept. A woman there typed something into her computer, then said, "Your return flight was cancelled. You're no longer on their health insurance or emergency contact list. I'm so sorry." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. They didn't forget me. They got rid of me. That night, I walked back to the hotel, hoping maybe they left a message, something. The only thing I found was in my jacket pocket, a small note in my mom's handwriting. "You're 17 now, old enough to survive." That was it. No sorry, no reason, just a sentence that cut straight through me. I curled up behind some bushes near a bakery and cried until I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how to get home. I didn't even know if I had a home anymore. Somewhere nearby, I heard music playing, maybe from a wedding. People were laughing and clinking glasses, a family that still wanted to be together. I looked at the last photo we took, me between my parents, smiling under an old marble column. We looked like a family, but the problems were always there. I just didn't see them. Later, I remembered little things from before the trip. My dad holding an envelope marked, "Final Notice." My mom pacing the kitchen, whispering. And one night, when I pretended to be asleep, I heard them arguing. "We can't take her with us," my mom said. "She'll ruin everything. She's not a kid anymore. She's barely hanging on. So are we." Back then, I thought they were just stressed, that they didn't mean it. But now, sitting alone in a country where no one knew me, I knew the truth. They didn't forget me. They erased me. I didn't sleep much those first few nights. I stayed behind a bakery at the edge of town. There was a metal trash bin that gave off a little heat, just enough to stop the wind from freezing me. I zipped my jacket all the way up and hugged my stomach, trying to stay warm. I listened to the sounds of early morning deliveries. Glass bottles clinking, boxes hitting the ground, men shouting in a language I barely understood. I counted my breaths so I wouldn't cry. On the third morning, I tried to steal a bread roll from a tray left near the back door. My hands were freezing, my mouth was dry. I didn't even hear anyone come up behind me, until someone grabbed my wrist. I froze, my eyes went wide. I thought I was in big trouble, maybe the police, or even being sent out of the country. But it was just a woman. She had silver hair in a loose bun, flour on her apron, and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She didn't yell, she didn't get angry, she just said, "If you're hungry, you work." Her name was Lucia. She was 68, ran the bakery by herself, and had lived in the same apartment above it for over 30 years. She let me wash dishes, mop the floor, and carry big bags of flour that were almost too heavy for me. That night, she gave me a folded blanket and pointed to a small bed in the storage room. She didn't explain anything or ask questions. It wasn't soft, it wasn't warm, but it was safe. And right then, safe was enough. Lucia never asked about my parents. I think she already knew something was wrong. Days passed, then weeks. I learned just enough Greek to understand simple instructions: wash, clean, more flour. I copied the way Lucia kneaded dough. I watched her adjust the oven without even looking at the dial. Sometimes, she spoke to me softly, usually at night when we cleaned the counters. One night, while we shaped bread, she looked at my hands and said, "My daughter had hands like yours, always smelled like dough, always too curious." I didn't ask about her daughter, she never talked about her again. But after that, Lucia started saving the ugly loaves, the ones that weren't good enough to sell. She wrapped them in brown paper and left them beside my bed, like it was a quiet way of showing she cared. Like she knew that love, for someone like me, had to come in small, gentle ways. I found an old laptop in the trash behind a building. I fixed it using parts from a repair shop nearby. I figured out how to connect to public Wi-Fi and signed up for an online GED program. I studied next to a noisy fridge in the bakery. I did my math homework while the smell of cinnamon and sesame filled the air. Whenever I got a quiz score, I whispered it to myself like a tiny prayer. I kept wearing the same jacket I had on the day my parents left me. Not because I liked it, but because the note was still in the pocket, the one that said, "You're 17, old enough to survive." Some nights, I'd take it out just to remind myself I was surviving, I was still here. Their words didn't destroy me. But deep down, I didn't know who I was anymore. I wasn't their daughter, I wasn't a student, I didn't even feel like I belonged to any country. I was just a girl washing dishes in a place where no one knew my name. But I was still alive. The first time I earned money that didn't come from the bakery, it was from a stock investment I barely understood. It was for a Greek shipping company. I'd read about them in an old business magazine someone left on a cafe table. I took a risk. I used the €200 I had been saving for new shoes. 2 weeks later, the money had tripled. That's when something changed. Not around me, but inside me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was learning how to move forward. One night, Lucia found me with my laptop open, looking at spreadsheets. She raised an eyebrow. "You playing accountant now?" she asked with a smile. I shrugged, just curious. The truth was, I wasn't just curious anymore, I was obsessed. I used every free resource I could find online, YouTube videos, business forums with translations, and even a sketchy PDF of Warren Buffett's essays. I read that PDF 3 times in 1 week and wrote notes on old receipts. His voice played in the background while I scrubbed dishes and rolled dough. I started taking bigger risks. Some didn't work, others paid off in big ways. By the time I turned 20, I had clients. By 22, I had investors. I registered a small consulting business with a name in another language. Nothing fancy, just enough to look official. Word got around. I helped local vendors improve how they managed supplies, gave advice to travelers on online investing, and even made a short course for other undocumented young people who wanted to earn money online. Lucia never asked how much I made, but she noticed the little things, like the new phone I gave her for Christmas, the espresso machine I quietly added to the bakery, or how I paid her gas bill without saying a word. One afternoon, she looked at me and said, "You walk different now, like you're not expecting the sky to fall anymore." I laughed, but she was right. I started sending money to youth shelters back in the US, always anonymous, mostly to places in Florida. I told myself I just wanted to help, but deep down, maybe I wanted them to wonder, who's helping these girls now, the way no one helped me? I never posted about my work, never used my full name. I didn't want attention, I wanted freedom, peace, a life that didn't need to explain itself to people who had thrown it away. Even with everything, clients, money, respect, I still felt that same scared girl from the bakery deep inside. She was quiet now, but not gone. She came back in moments of doubt, on nights I couldn't sleep, or when someone raised their voice too fast and I flinched. I wasn't healed, I was building. And when you build from ashes, you remember every piece, every scar, every crack you had to fill with your own hands. So when the past showed up again, when I saw that address in a foreclosure listing, I didn't wait. I booked a one-way flight back to Florida. Lucia saw it first. She was drinking coffee at the kitchen table, flipping through old international newspapers someone had dropped off. She didn't even look at me, just slid the paper over and tapped a small box near the bottom. "You recognize that address?" I looked at it, the street, the city, the zip code. I knew it by heart. That was the house my parents bought after they left me, the one they showed off online as their fresh start. Now it was going into foreclosure. I leaned back and let out a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding. Sometimes, life hands you the very thing it once took away. And it doesn't feel like victory, not right away. It feels quiet, still, like the air before a storm. I didn't tell Lucia what I was thinking. I didn't have to, she already knew. We flew to Florida, acting like it was for business. I used the legal name of my company, one I had built carefully over the years, clean, simple, untraceable. The auction took place in a sunny parking lot outside a government building. It looked exactly like you'd expect in Florida: older men in pastel shirts, rich couples with brochures, investors tapping on tablets. Nobody gave me a second glance. Lucia stood beside me with the bidder card. I whispered numbers in her ear, and she raised the card calmly. No emotion, just business. The bidding went up fast. Another man wanted the house too: khakis, boat shoes, the kind who looked at us like we didn't belong there. But Lucia didn't blink. When the auctioneer slammed the gavel and said, "Sold to bidder 173, she lowered the card. We didn't celebrate, we didn't even speak, we just stood there while it sank in. I owned it now. Their living room, their fridge, their bedroom with the window facing the street. The life they tried to build without me was mine now. I didn't feel angry, I didn't feel proud. What I felt was something colder, sharper. Control. A week later, they got the notice. It was official, filled with legal language. They had 30 days. I imagined them reading it, shocked, not knowing who bought the house, not knowing the girl they left behind at 17 had just signed the deed. And I wasn't done. They asked for a meeting. Their lawyer called Lucia, thinking she was the owner. He said my parents wanted to talk, to negotiate. I agreed. We met at a quiet real estate office on the edge of town, private, neutral. I got there 10 minutes early, wore navy, hair pulled back, sunglasses on, not to hide, just to stay unreadable. They walked in 2 minutes late. My mother came in first, wearing a beige sweater and big sunglasses, the kind that made you look fragile. My father followed, holding a worn folder close to his chest. They didn't recognize me. They sat across the table, nodded politely, and waited. I didn't say a word, just took off my sunglasses. My mother went pale, her lips parted, like she wanted to speak but couldn't. My father blinked and looked down. The silence was sharp. "You left me," I said. "In a country I didn't know, with no money, no ID, no goodbye." My mother's hand twitched. "We thought you'd hate us less if we just disappeared," she said, barely above a whisper. For a second, I saw something real in her eyes, not regret, maybe fear, maybe shame. But then it disappeared, like it always did. "You were impossible," she said, "always emotional, always fighting. We were drowning, you were pulling us under." I nodded slowly. "You were supposed to be the lifeboat," I said. "Not the ones who throw people overboard." My father still hadn't looked at me. "Say something," I told him. "Look at me and say it wasn't your choice." He opened his mouth, closed it, gripped the folder tighter. "Your mom thought." "I don't care what she thought." He winced. "You didn't even try to stop her," I said. "You let her erase me." When he finally spoke, his voice was dry and tired. "I didn't think you'd make it." I stood up, calm and in control. "Well, I did, and now I own the house you're living in." My mom blinked. "You're lying." I pushed the signed deed across the table. Her hands shook as they hovered above it. Lucia walked in from the hall, holding a clipboard. Her face was serious, cold. She nodded at them. "You'll need to hand over the keys within 30 days, she said. "You'll get the official move-out notice tomorrow." My mom looked back and forth between us, like she couldn't believe what was happening. "You can't do this, we're your parents." I looked her straight in the eye. "No, you were my parents, and you made your choice." She started to cry, but not real tears, at least not at first. It was the same act she always pulled when things got hard, playing the hurt, helpless mother. I didn't move. Lucia placed a small envelope on the table in front of her. "These are the legal instructions," she said. "Please read them carefully." My dad still hadn't said anything. His eyes were empty now, distant. I didn't feel sorry for him anymore. I turned to leave. "Wait," my mom said. "Why now, after all this time?" I paused at the door. "Because I needed you to see with your own eyes. I didn't come back because I needed you. I came back so you'd know I didn't need you at all." Then I walked out. Afterward, they posted about me online, said I was lying, said I'd been brainwashed, said I just showed up and stole their home like some cruel stranger. I didn't say a word. Lucia asked me if I saw the posts. I had. "Let them talk," I said. "I've got better things to do." We fixed up the house in 4 months. We painted the yellow siding, replaced the cracked kitchen tiles with soft oak floors, took down the cheesy live, laugh, love signs and filled the space with books, framed pictures, and soft blankets on every chair. We turned their bedroom into a dorm room, 2 bunk beds, new mattresses, lavender pillows, a lockbox for each girl's personal things. Lucia called it the second door, because some people never get a chance through the first. She started teaching again, Every Wednesday, baking class. Her students were girls like I used to be, too young to be on their own, too old for anyone to care. She taught them how to knead dough, how to trust their own hands, how to fail and keep trying anyway. Our first open house was in the spring. 6 girls came that week, 2 didn't talk, 1 wouldn't look us in the eye, another cried when we gave her clean socks. Lucia just smiled. Let them breathe, she said, the rest will come. That night, I stood in the backyard, my parents' old backyard. The air smelled like sugar and lemon soap. The porch light was warm. Inside, someone played music through a cracked phone speaker. There was laughter coming through the window, real laughter, loud, unapologetic. Lucia joined me, holding a mug of tea. Still feel like you don't have a home? She asked. I looked around. Every window was lit up. Shoes were by the door. A girl was brushing her hair in the hallway mirror. Another was curled up on the couch, finally sleeping. This isn't just a home, I said. It's where we all start over. And if you think that was intense, just wait until you hear what I said when they begged me for mercy. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Let's get into the full story of betrayal, survival, and the comeback they never saw coming.